Hello, and welcome to the introduction video for what I hope is going to be a very interesting, informative, and hopefully quite long and wide-ranging series of videos, which is going to be based on armour modelling, and mainly from a basic point of view as well. Now, there's plenty of videos on YouTube already covering all aspects of armour modelling, and I thought that I will just wade in there just on the basic side, and there's a reason behind this. This isn't something I've just thought of. This is we're in the middle of 2020, so it's the year where the pandemic hit. This was always one of my plans, but it got a bit lost in the old schedule. But I'm getting there now. And the reason behind this is because I see a lot of this. I've been an armour modeller my whole life. I went a bit sideways onto the aircraft for a while, mainly because I was burnt out, to be honest. You know, wanting to build a Tiger tank, for instance, and you know everything that's wrong with it, and you know you almost can't help yourself but try and fix all these things. And you know, you start 3, 4, 5 Tigers, and you never finish one because they're never perfect, and they're never going to be, if you think of it like that. And it does seem to be something that plagues armour modelling more than aircraft modelling. I have no idea why, but it just seems to be the case. So there we go. So what this is based on, right, is what I see on the internet quite a lot. I'm in lots of Facebook groups. Someone goes to Hobbycraft in the UK. You've got the same sort of thing in the US and other places, Hobby Lobby, all that sort of thing. And you go and buy one of these old kits, particularly one of these two. The old Tamiya Panther. There's a handful of them that are still around from the 70s. And the first thing you're going to see, certainly with like the Tamiya Panther, for instance, this is the Panther A from the 70s. The turret's the wrong size. It has to have Zimmerit. The tracks need changing. And, you know, someone who's just thought on a whim in the shop, I'm going to start building some armour, shares it on Facebook, I would feel is instantly sort of worried about it. And I was the same. A lot of people are the same. You'll see people picking obscure vehicles or not building a certain type because it had Zimmerit on it. Zimmerit is a bit of a problem with German armour vehicles. And if you don't know what Zimmerit is, it's a anti-magnetic paste that was put all over the flat parts, so it's quite hard to replicate. And then failing that, you go on to another thing, so you get some Russian armour or something like that. You know, what colours do you paint? 4BO, for instance, is the Russian colour, and on it goes all the way through that. So my hope here is that we're going to start off actually with these two. These two here are the first two builds, and we're starting with the Panzerkampfwagen 2 of FG. Now, this may even be a 60s mould, but it's definitely quite an old kit, that. And I want to show you that we can build that out of the box. And it doesn't matter that it probably needs new tracks and it could do with a new gun. That's not the point. You know, my feeling is that if you're going to get into armour modelling, the first 5 kits want to be really basic Tamiya kits. They're not necessarily their old ones. Their old ones are good because they're cheap. But certainly any Tamiya kit. Don't worry about changing anything. I don't think for your first 5 kits you should be looking at etch metal. I don't think you should really be thinking about changing out too much. You know, maybe you could work a metal barrel in once you've got a few things sorted. Maybe you could think about adding tracks, that sort of thing. I don't think you need any etch. I think there's a lot there that you can do as far as refining and honing skills and trying to get a good finish. So what we're going to do with these two is actually build them with stuff that you can buy in these hobby shops. So it doesn't even need to be a model shop. It's trying to catch those people who go straight in and just grab a model on a whim. And all of this stuff's available. So it doesn't mean we're going to brush paint it. You know, you're going to have to think about propelling paint. Presumably, a lot of you are actually my subscribers who already model, so hopefully you'll join me from the beginning as well. So we are going to have to depend on some way of propelling paint. So that's why I've picked these two, is because you can actually just buy a can of Tamiya, a rattle can, and spray it all over the dark yellow. And then we're done. That's no problem. That doesn't mean then we don't need to think about filters, oil washes, all of that. That all comes in straight in these first two builds. Because I don't feel as though they're things that are particularly out of reach for someone who's brand new. nor should they be. You can buy a couple of Winsor & Newton oil paints from any of these art shops, whatever. So I think, so for about 40 quid you can have all the tools you need. So we'll get into that in the next video. We're going to start off with basic tools that you need, why we're going to be using them, what you need to look for, and then move on into the build as the third part. And my intention is to take you right the way through. So as much as I'm saying we're starting on basic builds, it might be that the next one we work in might be something a little bit more complex. Where you got something like this Russian amphibious tank, very cheap. Individual link tracks. A little bit more building of the hull because it gets a little bit tricky. You've got to build certain parts, whereas a lot of the Tamiya kits are actually moulded as one. So this superstructure is just one bit that clips on. So then start moving through that. Now obviously we're not going to jump in with something like a mini art kit, and we'll discuss why you wouldn't, because these kits are not for beginners, but that doesn't mean you should be put off by them. And then we've even got here, we've got a T34 down here which has got etched metal in there, link and length tracks, and a metal barrel. So there's also that as well. Now I'm going to try my very best to make sure it's not the Panzer Brigade. So as much as it's very easy to get into German armour, and that's the one that captures the sort of limelight, I am going to try and avoid that somewhat. We'll move into it, if you know what I mean. It's very often people like to get into the German heavies, and that's when we start getting the problem with Zimmerit, tracks, track sag and that sort of thing we need to think about, etched metal grills. So that will come a bit later. We'll move towards that. So I do hope that you'll follow along with this series, and if you're new to armour modelling and you want to get started, we'll go right the way through. When we start getting into the German tanks, we'll talk about what dark yellow is, the Dunkelgelb, the different types of colours that you can buy. Tamiya now do 2 colours, so which one's better, for instance, and then move on through. So when we get onto the Russian armour, we'll talk about a good 4BO paint, which is their green paint. If we're doing British armour, we'll talk about that as well, and so on. So as I say, I hope that's going to be of interest, and I hope it's going to help some of you along the way. And as we get a bit further into it and we start looking at some more advanced techniques, my hope is that you'll learn with me as well. I really want this to be a good series. It goes on for a long time. Not necessarily in-depth, exhaustive builds. I mean, the video should be reasonably concise, but I hope that you learn a lot. So thanks for watching this one. Stay tuned. The series will be going up in a playlist that this video is attached to. So if you want to carry along, save the playlist. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.